Hi everyone, welcome back to Stationeers. Okay, I think it's about time we went through the greenhouse because, we are obviously, well, actually, we're starving our face off right now, but we really should be looking to make our own food, produce our own water, and to be honest, it's not that difficult. So there's no reason why we haven't done it yet. It's just been because I'm going through it in a really condescending way, but what can you do? I'm trying to aim it at new players. Just a quick note. Obviously, if you haven't seen the rest of the tutorial series, go and check it out. If you're new to the game, check out the comments as well. The community are being really helpful on any bits that I may have got slightly wrong, anything that I missed, and they're also chucking in some of their own ideas about what could help you. So 100% have a look at the comments on the previous videos. You will not regret it. So greenhouse. There's really four concepts that you need to, well, four kind of functions to the greenhouse you're going to need. You're going to need water, you're going to need light, you're going to need the atmosphere, and you're going to need cooling. We're going to split these videos down. It won't, some of them might not be very long, some of them might be, but we're going to just split them out into like each of their counterparts, as it were. And to start with, we're going to start with the easiest one to do, water. So it may not be a very long video, but we'll see. We'll see. So if you started on Mars, or if you started on any of the planets other than Venus and Vulcan, you will have access to water ice. So chances are, when it's daytime, I'll be able to go out and show you some of it. To process the ice into, well, liquid, you are going to need something called an ice crusher. So go to your pipe render, just type ice, and you'll see ice crusher there. Relatively cheap, something that you could very easily build in your first in-game day, but we're taking it slow. So yeah, that's why we haven't got it yet. I need some gold. Luckily, I've got 4 in there. I am running a little low though, so I'm going to have to go mining again. Apologies for the voice. My wife picked up a bug at the doctor's, and lo and behold, today I've started getting a sore throat. So, yippee. Let's see if we're both dead in the next couple of days. So, there's more than one way of doing this. And I'm talking about the greenhouse as a whole, right? The light, there's more than one way of doing it. The water, other ways of doing it. Even bringing the atmosphere, other ways of doing it. And I have no doubt that people will be more than helpful, and they will let you know in the comments. I'm going to just take you through the way I would do it if I was new, but that doesn't mean that it's the one and only way. So, in our Stationpedia, we've obviously got the ice crusher, so I'm going to need 1 iron sheet and 2 cable coils. So I've got the cable coil. The iron sheet I do not have. So let me get that made. So remember, all sheets are made in the autolathe. So let's get that printed. There we go. So let's head inside and just show you this machine. There's more things that we're going to need, but for now, let's just go in here and get it set up. So the ice crusher, you're going to want to give it a little bit of space because you've got to connect pipes to it. So I'm just going to do it here, and we're going to work on like our crops being maybe at the far end. I'm going to place the ice crusher there. Mainly because I don't want the pipes to be exposed to outside. We'll go through that shortly. But I'm just going to weld the sheet in, and then we're going to use the screwdriver. Oh no, we don't need a screw, just the cables. And voila, there is the ice crusher. So the ice crusher has a power port on the front and a data port on the back. We are going to use the data port today, and I'll show you why. We've also got a liquid connection, which is an output, and a gas connection that is an output. On the front, we've got the on and off switch, and then we've got the slot that we can put ice into. Important note, this is not just for water ice. Any ice can be processed through this, and it's really important that if you are connecting this to your greenhouse or for your water, that you do not put oxide in there and you do not put volatile in there, because then it's going to be like a whole thing of you having to try and get it out, and it's just not a good day having to mess with that. So just take this as water only, and that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to get that connected to power and data. So we're just going to run it in here off this greenhouse. Yes, because that's where we're having all of our power for this room. Let me connect to this. Like so. And also want to connect to the data. The reason we're going to do the data is because we're going to save a setting to this today. We visited the logic chips when we were doing the solar panels, and we're going to revisit them again today. And we'll go through why. So, when you put an ice in here, it will obviously release water, or liquid, and a gas. Now, depending on what you put in there, obviously depends on the liquid and the gas that the ice is going to kick out. If you look in your Stationpedia and search for water ice, and you'll see it's this one, ice water. Okay, it contains water, obviously, and nitrogen. If you look at the oxide, that also contains two different items. If you look at the volatile, I don't think this does. I think this just contains volatile. Where is ice volatile? Yeah, just that one. But basically what I'm trying to say is, when I put ice into here, we're obviously going to get our water out, which is perfect. But we are going to have to deal with gas as well. Now, nitrogen can come in handy later in the game, so we are going to look to keep that. And we're just going to store it somewhere for now, and then we're going to have it later. We can use it for our jetpacks. We can use it in the greenhouse atmosphere for different plants later. Let's get that set up. So we have our water tank, and we probably want to connect the ice crusher to this so that all of our water is in one place. So I'm going to go and get a couple of things printed. Mainly we're going to go for some water pipes, but we're also going to need some gas pipes and maybe a couple of utilities so we can store stuff in there. So I'm going to go for some normal water pipes, and we're just going to print out a couple of them. If the ice crusher had been placed one closer to the wall, I would have said use insulated pipes, because you don't want the outside temperature to affect the temperature of your water. If outside is cold, it can start decreasing the temperature of your water, and same the other way. If the outside is hot, it'll obviously increase the temperature. That's kind of why I've moved it one away from the wall, so we've got space for the pipes without them obviously encountering that problem. But we don't need to do any of the insulated stuff, which is fine because it's expensive. We're using steel for that. Well, actually, I say it's expensive. It's not really expensive, but if you're new to the game, you probably don't want to be making steel all the time. So let's get my light thingamabobbed. And we're just going to grab a few of these pipes. These are going to be for the nitrogen. Make 2 more just to get rid of the 0.5. And then I want some utilities. Now, in the greenhouse, obviously anything that isn't insulated, so these pipes aren't insulated, so these will allow temperature to pass between them and the room that they're in, or the atmosphere outside. They're going to be in our greenhouse, which means whatever temperature our greenhouse is probably what we're going to get the pipe to, or vice versa. Whatever the pipe is, if left unchecked, could affect the temperature in our greenhouse. But we'll worry about that later when we start looking at our cooling setup. Right, a couple more things that you're going to want, but I think we started with them. I'm pretty sure. Oh, I had some pipes. Pipe. Singular. Let's head back inside, because we also started with this crate. There's some pipes there, but you can never have enough pipes. But in here we have a water bottle filler. You're going to want that. Grow lights, liquid CO2, soybeans. The rest of it, not too concerned about right now. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to connect the top connection just to a pipe network on the left wall. Now, what I said earlier about these pipes obviously being on the wall and transferring heat between it and the outside atmosphere, that is relevant to these kind of walls that aren't a frame. The frame, you are okay to put pipes on it. Nothing's going to transfer into there. That's not an issue. What would be an issue, if I just put that there, if I put a pipe there, that is exposed to outside. So I'm not going to lose the gas because I don't have a vent or anything on it, but the temperature will affect the pipe. And if I need to run a pipe outside, it's not a problem, but just do insulate it. That way you don't have to worry about it. And you can have a pipe network where I could do that, and I could have an insulated pipe in the middle, and that would also be perfectly fine. That, if you want to do that, do it. I don't know why you would, but it's an option. The utility, that allows you to store a higher amount of pressure in a smaller volume. So you would use those in place of like a large tank. A tank would be overkill for what we're doing here, because we're not going to get a lot of nitrogen from this. But that's going to account for our nitrogen output. Now we need to do the liquid. So what I'm going to do, and you know what, I'm going to tidy my cable up a little bit actually. Because what I want to do, let's run that cable on the other side of the crusher. Like so. Number one, it makes it tidier. Number two, pipes can exist in that space if it's a corner pipe and a corner, well, if it's a corner pipe, it can exist in that space as long as the cable doesn't come down here. So I can very easily put that there. If I put the cable here, like so, I can't place the pipe because the cable is in the way. So you can't run cables along a pipe, but you can kind of use a corner, and they can occupy the same space because technically the cable is clear, as you can see there. That's fine. So I'm going to stick that in there, and then I'm going to bring this around. And you know what? I am going to need some insulated pipes, because I want to fill my water bottles, but I want to put my bottle filler on the wall. So you started with this, the bottle filler, and you simply place it, or you can place it on the floor if you want to, but we're not going to be that guy. We're going to place it on the wall. You can scroll to change whether the pipe connection is at the bottom or the top. I'm going to have it at the bottom, and I'm going to put it there at eye height. It looks ugly in the wall, but that's because we're using the iron walls. It's just a bit of annoyance on the game, really. To be honest, if I move that over here, it might be better. If I do that, yeah, that's better. So kind of, if you're using the iron walls, figure out where you're going to place it. Otherwise, wait until you get the better walls later, the smoother ones, and you won't have that issue. But what I want to do is I'm going to run this pipe here, but then going forward from there to there, that needs to be insulated because, again, it's going to be outside. Like if I stick that pipe there, obviously we can't see it in the wall, but if I go outside, you will be able to see it. And I'll just go outside to show you. There you go, look, you can see that pipe. And the rule is, if you can see the pipe, then chances are it's going to be affected by the atmosphere out here. So, again, on external walls where there's no frame behind it, insulated pipes. Now, they are a little bit more expensive. It's just steel and silicon, though, on which we have got that. So, let's get a couple made. I do definitely have steel. Silicon, I may not have, actually. I don't. I think it's time for a furnace run. However, I don't have volatile. Yes, I do. Okay, let's go get some silicon made, assuming I've got some ore. I've got 4 there and 50 there, that's fine. Okay, so we're gonna go and make sure our valve is closed. We may have lost some of that volatile, but what can you do? That's why it's important to make sure your valve is closed. There we go. We're gonna fire that up. There we go, nice and hot. And then we're just gonna get our silicone put inside. And whilst we're here, remember you may as well not waste that heat. So get some more stuff furnace or processed through the furnace. So there's a bit of iron for me. Let's do a bit of gold. And then we'll do a bit of copper. And then we'll just do gold and iron, mainly because that's all I've got. Yeah, I'm going to do the iron first after that gold because iron requires a hotter temperature than gold. And we're going to get to that temperature pretty rapidly. So as you can see there, temperature is still dropping significantly. Right, once we get to 800k, we won't be able to do any more iron. So that may be our last one. So now let's just do gold. And I think gold is 700. I think. Yes, gold is 700k. We'll be able to do all that. Have I got any more? Ah, we'll do that copper. Why the hell not? There we go. We got plenty. Don't forget, when you do this, take your stuff inside. Just gonna chuck it on the floor for now because that's what I'm doing. Because we're very, very tidy here. Yes, I've got a locker in that corner. What are you gonna do about it? We grab these as well. And we'll vent him out. So it's all gone. Okay, so we need that silicon. Wherever it is. Did I leave it out here? I did not. Where did my silicon go? Oh, there we go. It's in my tool belt. Ball. Okay. Wouldn't you? Make me a couple of insulated pipes, and it looks like a couple is all I'm going to get. But that is all we need. Close that door as well. We haven't got a storm coming, but it's always good practice to close your doors. Let's head on in. So, by putting this here, that pipe is now protected from the outside atmosphere, and it doesn't matter that the pipe in here isn't insulated. That's fine. Yes, this will react to the room, but we won't lose any of that heat outside. That's fine. Last but not least, the water bottle filler requires cable. Oh, sorry, requires power.
Hydration critical.
Yeah. We're sorting out water now. We just need some more cable. So grab some copper, assuming we haven't got any in here. We haven't. And you know what? Cable is one of those things that you'll never have loads of. So let's just... Well, no, you will have loads of it, but I'm going to make loads anyway. Let's tidy up a little bit, shall we, while we're waiting for some cablers. So you, and... Well, just, you know what? Everything can just go anywhere. It doesn't matter. It's fine. This is all fine. It's supposed to be on the floor. We'll do 2 more. Do. Do I need anything else? Maybe just a couple of bottles. To be honest. Oh, no. I'm going to obviously need to go out and get some water, aren't I? Some ice, because that would be a good step forward. But we'll stick both of those in there. And let's run that cable down. So obviously I can't see it, but remember, when you get the yellow icon, it means you're going to be connected to a cable. And what we'll do is we'll run this way along the wall. And we'll be able to connect there. Perfect. Now, whilst it's still a little bit of daylight, let's go and get some water ice. We are literally at the end of the day. So I've done that well. But I can see it there. So the ice is kind of like the light whitey blue. So the dark rich blue is the oxide, but this light pure, well, this kind of pure bluey whitey thing, this is your water ice. Just called ice out in the world, but it is your water ice. So grab a fair whack of this. Don't worry about going out and getting tons, because this will last you a while, and yeah, it's not a scarce item. You'll find tons of it. But I'm just going to make sure I get what I can in this hole. Oh no, that's not ice, that's silicon. But I think we... oh no, a bit more there. But yeah, I think we're looking good. So let's head back on in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out another mining backpack. Because we're going to want a place to store our ice. And in a backpack, they are protected from external temperatures. Not made in there, it's made in here. So go to your tool manufactory, search mining, and find the mining backpack. Just requires a bit of iron, which we've got shed loads of. Just make one of those. There we go. And now what I can do is I can have this as my water ice storage. Or we can stick that on the floor, we can stick it in a locker or whatever. Let's start as we mean to go on. Let's get ourselves a locker and get that put on the wall in the greenhouse. One thing I'll say is this whole locker thing is a very much do as I say, not as I do situation. I very rarely use lockers myself. No, sorry, that's a lie. I do use lockers, but they're more for show than actually using. I do tend to stick all my stuff on the floor, to be honest. But there we go. That's where we're going to store our backpack. So whenever we're done, we'll just stick that in there. Jobs are good. So, with the ice crusher, let me show you how it works. It's pretty straightforward. Turn it on. Grab your ice. Stick it in there. That is it. That will now crush that ice. And we will have water in the pipe. Now, it has to get to a certain temperature before it will produce the water. Like it kind of warms the ice up. I guess that's kind of it crushing, I guess. But what you'll see is once it's processed somewhat, you'll start getting water in your pipe. Now you can see there that temperature is going down. That is because the ice is still coming in at a relatively cool temperature. And also that pipe will be losing or gaining heat based on the room. It's losing a bit of temperature because you will get a little bit of phase change. Now, don't worry, we're not getting into that. I'm not touching phase change at all. But all you need to know at this point is that there you can see on the left hand side I've got H2O in its liquid state. And then I've got H2O in its gas state, it's steam. There will always be a little bit of steam in your pipes. You have to have a certain amount of pressure in a pipe in order for it to maintain the water itself as water. There has to be. If I remove that as steam, all that would happen is the water would continue to evaporate into more steam. And if I continue to do it, eventually I just get everything out of that pipe. Because steam has to exist for liquid to exist. That's it. And I think that goes for all gases. And like in their liquid states, there has to be a pressure. And the pressure is taken from its gas. I'm not going to worry about that anyway. Sorry, I don't mean to go on for the tangent, but just be aware that obviously if I run out of water, but I look at the pipe with my tablet, I may still see something in there, but it could be steam. It's that icon on the right hand side, the light blue with like the without the water in the bottom part of it. But this is it. This is basically an ice crusher. This is all you need. The only thing we're going to do is we're going to increase the capacity of that pipe, because if you have a look at it at the moment, the capacity of that entire network is 140 liters. Now, obviously, we're not going to fill that. You're not going to do that. You're going to store your ice, and when you start running out, you're going to put some more in. You're not going to hit that. But we have ice here. Sorry, we have water here. We've got 89 liters. And we want both of those on the same network. So very easily, you start with these portable connectors. So grab one and just stick it somewhere. So I'm just going to stick it here. It's out of the way. It's not going to get in my way. The connector, this is used to kind of connect these two. So if I grab the tank and just drop it using Q, and then if I get my wrench out, I connect to that, and that allows that to become part of the base, part of the pipe network. All we then need to do is connect it with pipes. So we'll get our wrench, stick that in there. Now if we look at the capacity, our capacity is 200 litres in the pipe network, 790 litres in the tank, but we are now sharing the liquid between the two. The tank is part of this network, kind of isn't, because it's registered as a different item, but don't worry too much about that. Just know that this pipe now won't run out of liquid until that tank does. The tank's always going to hold more. Just how it works. Don't ask me why. Don't know. I didn't make the game. But yeah, so obviously looking at the pipe, don't worry too much about some of those figures. You see you've got the pressure in the top left corner. In a liquid pipe, the pressure cannot go above 6 megapascal. That is the maximum a liquid pipe can handle. We're nowhere near it. We're on 11 kilopascal. It's not an issue. And assuming you keep your liquid at this temperature, it will never be an issue. So you don't need to worry too much about that. Obviously, the liquid incapacity we've touched on. We've got the temperature in the bottom left corner, 19.5. The reason that's gone up so drastically is because that tank isn't insulated, and it's been in this room long enough for the room to affect its temperature. We've now got 19.5 degree water, which I wouldn't want to drink that. But that's absolutely fine. For the game, not an issue. You can drink that water. Your plant will drink that water. It's room temperature. It's not an issue. The convected and the radiated figures, don't worry about those right now. They basically represent the heat gain and loss that is happening on that pipe. You don't really need to worry about it. If I had all of this insulated, then both of those figures would be 0. But long story short, because we're not using insulated, keep your room temperature manageable and your water pipe will stay at a decent temperature. Easy peasy. Latent heat, not going to get into it. Don't know what it means. Never use it. Don't really care about it, to be honest. Just don't. There's clever people that will probably tell you what latent heat is. I'm not one of those people. I don't know. And then you've got the two symbols, the one on the left, the one on the right. Left is your water, right is your gas. You can see you've got 1.08 kilomoles of water, which is, it's enough. It's going to get you by for quite a while. And don't forget, whenever you start running low, just chuck some more in. Now, I mentioned on the ice crusher that I was going to connect the data to this because I want to write something to it, and that is still true. So the ice crusher, as we discussed, will crush the ice and warm up the device. Once it gets to a temperature, that is when it will output the water. And so you're using power to get it to the temperature, but it's also taking time for it to get to that temperature. And you might be in a rush. You might want to change it. So if you get your... I don't have my chip. So we want our configuration card. I'm pretty sure I went through the configuration card. If I didn't, let's do it again. I don't see my configuration card, so maybe I didn't. Okay, let's make ourselves a configuration card. So go to your electronics printer and type configuration. I need some iron and some gold. Oh, yeah, look, we've got loads. Iron, please. Print out one of those. Then put that card in your tablet. I'm going to replace the Atmo analyzer because I guarantee if I don't use the tracker, I'll get lost. And and then go back inside and I will show you what I'm talking about. So what the configuration card does is it gives you information about the device that you're pointing it at, depending on the device. So it's only really used on devices that have logic. So you can see if I point it at the door, I get all the door settings. I can point it at the console, I can point it at a sensor, I can point it at the APC. Anything that can take a logic connection, you can get information from. And normally you would check this to make sure it's doing what you expect. Like if you're planning on automating something later, then you would look in here to go, right, I need to change the setting. I can see that currently its setting is 2, so whatever it's doing now means 2. And that's kind of what you use this card for. If you look at the ice crusher and just scroll down a little bit, you can see setting, which says 288.15. That is the temperature at which it will start processing the water. Now it's in Kelvin, so you take that figure and you minus 273. I think it's actually 273.5, something like that. But nah, I don't care about that. Ignore the 0.15. 288 minus 273 is 15, and that is 15 degrees Celsius. Which, to be honest, is not a bad temperature. It's absolutely fine. But if we reduce that temperature, we use less power and process our ice quicker. So let's go and make a couple of logic circuits, which you've touched on. So hopefully you're familiar with them. If not, go and have a look at the previous video. What we're going to need is we need one logic IO. I'm going to put one of those. Remember, these are in the electronics printer. And then once you have that, you're then going to want a memory. Take that. Now my character is breathing very heavily, which means he's either giving birth or he needs a drink. I'm going to say it's the latter. So, chuck those on the floor for a second. We have our water bottle filler. I'm going to click the on button. And you can see that fills your bottles. So well done. You've got water on tap now. Well, water in bottle, but you know what I mean. And as long as you keep your ice supply up, then you have effectively unlimited water, basically. As you get further in the game, you can produce your own water. You can launch rockets into space to get water. You can trade for water. There are other ways of getting it, but new player on Mars, go and mine the ice, put it in your ice crusher, job done until you get into the mid to late game. So, we have a device that we want to change the setting on. So obviously we can see there we've got the setting 288.15. Again, if you want to get some information about all of these, search for the device that you're planning on programming or changing or whatever it is you're doing. Search for it in your Stationpedia and you will see all of the logic bits here. We're not going into detail, but all you need to know is the setting is read and write. So we can read to it as well as write and change it. The setting, when you click on it, doesn't really give you any information because the setting, depending on the device, does a different thing. On an LED, the setting is just what you can see on it. In an ice crusher, it's obviously the temperature at which it will process water. So depending on the device, kind of depends on what setting does. But basically, if you're unsure, just look at it with your configuration card and then just try and have a play with it, see what it does. So to change that, we need to get a value and then we need to write that value to the ice crusher. So I'm going to do a logic memory and we want a logic writer. And these don't have to stay. We can pull these back up straight after. So what I want to do is I want the logic writer and you can see the arrows. You've got an input and then an output. That's the input and the output of the logic. So I'm going to do it. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to put it here, because we'll use less cable this way. That logic writer is going to write the number to the ice crusher, but it needs to know where to get the number from. It doesn't know what number. You've got all of these screws, so I can say in. Well, at the moment, I can't see anything because nothing's connected. The out is the device, and then the out var is the setting or the logic it's going to write to. Get your memory and place your memory on, doesn't really matter the orientation on this, it physically has no bearing on anything, but just put that down. And then all you want to do is connect the memory to the input of the logic writer. So if I get my wire cutters, wherever they may be, oh, there we go. I'm going to connect that there. I then need to connect this to the network and give it some power. The memory unit doesn't require power. This just holds a number. What you'll see a lot of people do as well is when they're using the circuits, they'll just connect all the ports to each other. So like if I wanted to, I could connect this cable to that cable. Absolutely fine, not an issue. It doesn't matter. It still work. It just means that you have to scroll through a million devices to find the one that you want. Whereas by connecting only a single device to it, the first thing and the only thing is the logic memory. There's nothing else in there. So the output is the out device we're going to connect it to. And we're going to connect it to the ice crusher. And then what we want to connect it to is the setting. So we're taking in the memory and we're writing out to the ice crusher on the setting logic. All that's left is to set the memory. Now remember that we're working in Kelvin here. So don't just put in like 2, because that'll be like negative 271 degrees Celsius. Not what you want. So I'm going to use the labeler. Now I'm going to say I'd be happy with my water coming out at 5 degrees. That to me feels nice and cool. And it'll speed that up. It will cool the room down a little bit, but then the room will warm that pipe up as well. So effectively, we aren't really going to keep that 5 degree. Eventually, we will lose it, but it will speed up the ice crusher's processing. So what I want to do is I'm going to put 1 in, just a single one, and just look at how. Okay, that actually melted. I think that's now in the room with me. Let me go and get my atmospheric card. So remember, I told you before, ices melt in your hand if the temperature is worthy. And I'm pretty sure that ice has just melted. Pretty positive. Oh, it didn't. It just processed that bloody quickly. But maybe it's because it was just 1. But either way, it doesn't matter. We're still going to logic this anyway. So, my memory, if I want my water to be crushed at 5 degrees, I'm going to change the memory to that. So remember, it's 0 degree Celsius is 273 degrees Kelvin. Near enough. So if I want 5 degrees Celsius, I need 278. So we've got that on the memory. And we're taking in the memory out to the crusher on the setting. So before I turn it on, have a look at the crusher. That is not the right card. Let me chuck that on the floor. So you can see we've got a setting of 288.15. If I turn this on, I now have 278. So we've changed the setting of the ice crusher. And now we're not really going to notice it, I don't think. But basically, if I put this in, that'll be processing a lot. Oh, there you go. Look, that did. Look how quick that did a stack of 15. Let's do a stack of 50, and just see how quickly that processes that. Oh, rapid. If you think about earlier when we were putting it in, it was taking a little while to process, and we were waiting because I showed it you. Now it's processing so much quicker. And as I said, it will change the temperature. Whoops, wrong buttons. It will change the temperature of this pipe, but it won't stay that way. You can see there we've currently got 18 degrees. That will get warmer because of the room. But don't worry about it. It's fine. We could turn this off now because when we write it, it's like a one-time thing. We don't need to keep writing it. So to be honest, I can now rip this stuff up. Not needed. That setting will retain on the ice crusher until you take the ice crusher up. yeah, basically that. It will just now work like that forever. If it remains in that place untouched, it will just stay like that. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So then the last thing we're going to do today is we're just going to put our trays down. And the trays, so the hydroponic trays, these are basically where you're going to grow your crops. Now, there are two different versions of this. There are the device and the tray. In all honesty, nobody really uses the devices anymore. They've got a logic port on them, and that used to allow you to read stats from the plant, and then when you wanted to automate it, you could write that to a Harvey. It's a device that would harvest it for you, or you could write it to, I don't know, a display or whatever. The problem with these though is you can't place them next to each other. So I mean, some people might still use them. I personally don't anymore. I just use the tray variant, which is this one. So I'm going to just place the... It doesn't matter too much, I guess, does it? So let's just put them here. For now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And very simply, just pipe them in. There we go. And that's it. You now have water available for your plants. We have the ice crusher going into a pipe network, which is feeding both ourselves with water and it will be feeding our plants. Plus, we got our tank connected to the network as well. So we've got 60 litres of water in there. We've got 61 litres in the pipe. So remember, these two are not the same. So all in all, we've got 120 litres of water, which is going to last ages. So that is good. That's very good. Right. So that we're not kind of throwing too much information at you, we're going to leave it there. That's the first part of our greenhouse setup. Water. That is a big tick. Next time, we're going to start looking at the atmospheric side of it. So we need to make sure we've got a supply of CO2 that we could feed into this room. And with that, we will also gain the ability to breathe in here. So we'll be able to open up our helmet, walk around almost butt naked, and get rid of these two errors that have been flashing for God knows how long. So that is what we're going to be doing next time. And that will be a slightly longer video. There's a bit more setup to that. But we'll go through it as carefully and slowly and in detail as I can. So, very short one. Not a lot of information there, but just like something small, like, okay, your next baby step. And yeah, we will take it from there next time. So, thank you for watching. And until then, take care. Oh yeah, I said that wrong. Bye.